Let's do a very quick and easy explanation of the English common law, because if you are a lawyer from a codified system, it's very different from the way we do things in England, and it doesn't need to be difficult. The common law is often explained in a very complex way, but actually it's not. So that word common actually just means the same in every area of the country. Before we had the common law, each region of England had its own law, and that's understandable, I think, because we're going way back in history when people didn't travel, they didn't live that long, there was no exchange of information, and it meant that what was a crime in the north of England might not have been a crime in the south of England because they didn't communicate. Can I give you a slightly disgusting example? I'm going to tell you two true stories, and the first one is slightly ugh. So go way back before the common law. You have a man with a small holding, which means a very small area of land, and he keeps animals to feed his family. And one day he finds that one of his animals has died. It's a small pig and it's died. And he doesn't know why. He doesn't want his other animals to become ill. So he takes it to the very edge of his land and he buries it under the ground. Unfortunately, a neighbour has seen him do this, comes at night, digs up the pig, makes it into meat and sells it in the market. Please remember how long ago this was. I know English food is bad, but it's not that bad. This is a very long time ago. Now, a question was asked of a local judge because the original man, the pig owner, was furious. So they went before a local judge, the man and his neighbour, and the legal question was this: if I have something that I don't want, like a dead animal, and I dispose of it, I kind of throw it away, is that the crime of theft? Now, theft is taking something that belongs to someone else with the intention of keeping it and never returning it. So if you were the judge being asked this legal question for the first time, that first man threw away that pig, he didn't want it, and the second man took it. Is that a crime? Now, the judge had never been asked this question before. It was the first time any legal representative had had this question. And in giving his answer, the judge wrote down his legal reasoning. And his legal reasoning is why he arrived at the conclusion that he did. And it probably went on for quite a lot of pages because judges do like words. Let's say he said, yes, actually, that is a crime. If the same thing happens in the south of England and the judge says, well, no, that's obviously not a crime, you've got different law. So how do you solve that problem? Well, we got a king, William the Conqueror, who said, okay, we're going to solve this problem. London, the centre of all intelligence and excellence, as it's still considered in England. I'm from the north, I don't know if I believe that. But William the Conqueror said, London will send out judges around the country with decisions. They will make decisions in London. Their legal reasoning will be written and delivered to every region of the country. So instead of having different law, we've got common law, things in common, things that are the same. So then, if the same thing happens with the dead animal in the south of England and the north of England, the law is common. It is the same. Why? Because a judge in London decided that wrote down his decision, it was published and delivered. So how does that relate to modern life? Well, I'll tell you a true story about what happened to me. I had a Hugo Boss watch that I loved, and it stopped working. And I took it to be repaired, and the repairman kind of said, "It's only Hugo Boss. We can't send it to Switzerland to fix it. It's lived for 4 years and we can't fix it." So one day at the end of teaching, I took it off because I was still wearing it, even though it didn't work. And I put it in the bin in my classroom. And I left for the day. I went home. And the next morning, when I came early to prepare for my class, the cleaning lady was wearing it. Now, the legal question might be if I say, "Hey, that's mine, give it back to me, or I will call the police." Of course, I didn't do that, but if I had, is that a crime? Now, you can't just use your own logic. You need to look at the original decision on this situation. The original decision is called a precedent case, and the precedent case is the pig. So we look at what the judge in London said about that. You had a man who threw away something he didn't want, and the neighbour took it. Is it a crime? You might not agree, but in England, the precedent case, the original case, in the judge's written reasoning, he said, yeah, it's a crime, and here is why. So if I wanted to, I could call the police and say, that lady took my watch out of that bin, and I want it back. And if she keeps it, could be a crime, is a crime, according to the precedent case. And that's how the common law works. Judges are asked a legal question for the very first time. The London judges in the Supreme Court give an ultimate decision. Their words are written down, sent around the country, of course digitally now, not by a man on a horse, and that's the law. And that's why there's no exam to be a judge in England. They actually make new law. They create law. They do interpret our codified law. Our codified law is Acts of Parliament. Politicians make that law, the people we vote for. But judges still make a lot of law here, and you can't have someone who's inexperienced and 25 years old doing that. So what we do, you get 20 years experience as a solicitor or a barrister, and then you can apply to be a judge, and they might choose you and they might not. And the reason is our judges have so much power because they can make new law, and that's how the common law works. Common means the same everywhere. A precedent case is the first time the question was asked, and I guess our equivalent of your code is the judge's written legal reasoning. Is it true that in England you don't need a law degree to be a lawyer? Yes, it is. It's absolutely true. And if you are a law student or a lawyer in a civil code country, you probably think that's extremely weird and would be impossible in your jurisdiction. And I think you're absolutely right. But let's explain it. So you can't be a hairdresser one day and then decide, I'm going to be a barrister. Fortunately or unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. What you need to do to be either a solicitor or a barrister is to get a degree, any degree. So lots of lawyers here do have law degrees, of course they do, but lots don't. They have a first degree, a bachelor's degree in mathematics, chemistry, music, in my case, English, literature, philosophy, any degree. And that just proves something about your intellectual capabilities. You are educated to graduate standard. What you can then do if you want to is a conversion course at university to law. If you're asking why, there are a couple of reasons why. The first is our leading law firms in London asked for that. They said, we want the best graduates. We don't care about what discipline, maths, chemistry, just give us the best people. We'll interview them. If we think they will make good commercial lawyers, we'll teach them everything they need to know here on the 2-year training course. And that's how it works. So that's the first reason our leading law firms requested that. And because law is one of the major services that England provides to the world, you've got to give those leading law firms what they want. Banking, insurance, education and law, that's what we've got these days. The second reason is a bit of a secret, quite bad news for law students really, which is wherever you are in the world, I think this is true, the law that you need to do your job is very different from the theoretical academic law that you study at university. So what I'm saying is a horrible truth, and that is when you begin work, the knowledge that you get from your law degree, you're probably not going to use. When I ask experienced lawyers who come to us in Cambridge for legal English classes, when I ask them, what percentage of your law degree did you actually use when you began working? And it doesn't matter whether they're from Brazil, Indonesia, Italy, Philippines, Denmark. I've spoken to all of these lawyers and they all say, maybe 10% of my law degree was useful and everything else I learned when I was doing the job. So that's true here as well. For example, I studied contract law for months and months and months, but I never sat down with a tutor with an important written contract and that tutor explained to me what it meant. So I knew about offer and acceptance, but when you gave me an indemnity clause with indemnity insurance of £21 million, I was lost. And I think that's true internationally. So that's the second reason why we don't require a law degree. You don't really use it. And it's not because we have the common law and we don't have a code. It's just hard economic commercial truth, and I think it's worldwide. What can you do if you're doing your law degree now to get a bit more commercial awareness? Go to the Legal 500 website. What you'll find there is like a sports league table of law firms in your country. So if you're in Turkey and you go to legal500.com, find Turkey and ask it for the best commercial law firms or the best employment law firms, you're going to get who is Real Madrid, who is Liverpool, and who is my team, Sunderland. We won't talk about that, but it's a ranking. And if you visit the websites of the best firms in your country, you're going to see the work that they're doing, who their leading lawyers are. There'll be profiles of young lawyers who are doing amazing things. And that's a great first step to moving a little bit away from academic law and getting that magical thing that all employers are looking for, commercial awareness. So I hope you understand a bit more why we don't require a law degree in the UK, but you know, we're just weird. We drive on the wrong side, we put milk in tea. I don't know what to tell you. Defamation in the common law system isn't a crime, it's a tort. So let's decide what defamation means. Defamation is saying or writing something about someone that's not true and harms their reputation. That's what defamation is. And in your system, it could be a crime. I think in lots of systems it is. But in our system, it's a tort. So if someone defames you, you don't call the police or report it to the criminal authorities. You get a lawyer and you say, I will sue you and I will take everything you have. That's what people say. I'll take your house, I'll take your car because you defamed me. So you might treat it as a crime, but we treat it as a tort. It's a breach, a breaking of your civil duty to not harm other people. Now, there are two types of defamation, and one is considered more serious than the other. So, the less serious one we call slander. And slander is considered less serious because it's not permanent. So, if I'm at a party and I say something terrible and untrue about someone, it's my dog shaking, and 10 people hear me say that awful untrue thing, yes, it's defamation, but it's not permanent. It's gone already. Now, you can take legal action on that, and the law will give you a remedy. There's a question of evidence, of course, but if you can satisfy the court that there was slander, although it's gone now, the law will give you a remedy, and that is usually money. Damages, damage with an S becomes money, damages. The much more serious type of defamation is more common now, and that is libel. Now, libel, you can probably guess, is defamation in a permanent form. It doesn't go away. And it's more common now because everyone has a phone and the internet is forever. So it's expensive to bring a defamation case, but that's what you do in the UK and the USA. You say, I was defamed, it was slander, it was libel, of course. Libel's much easier to prove because it's in some permanent form. And the remedy is damages with an S, money. We're kind of obsessed with money rather than justice. It's a bit of an English disease. But I hope that explains for you what defamation is and makes clear it's not usually treated as a crime in the English and American legal systems.